Hey, welcome to Lackluster Video, the only video store left on Earth, and I'm the guy stuck working the counter. Today's rental, Late Night with the Devil. If you're subscribing right now, congrats, you made it before closing time. If you subscribe any later than this, I'm sorry, bud. I'm gonna have to charge you a late fee. Can't complain. I laminated the policy. It's in the back. I'll get it from the back and Okay, Late Night with the Devil actually premiered in South by Southwest in 2023. It's a horror movie, kind of falling somewhere between like mockumentary and found footage. I watched this movie and instantly fell in love, if I'm being honest. From the first time I watched it, I knew this is going to be something that comes on in my house every October, and the people I recommended it to felt the same way. Alright, let's talk about the cast. Jack Delroy is the host of a fictional late night show called Night Owls, played by David Dasmalchian. Or is it David Dasmalchian? But that name, Jack Delroy, your parents definitely took the over in a bet that you were going to become a talk show host. Jack Delroy? Are you kidding me? Carmichael Haig, he's the skeptic on the show. He's played by Ian Bliss. June Ross Mitchell, she's the parapsychologist, and she's played by Laura Gordon. Chris Stew is the medium. He's played by Faisal Bazi. That's another name right there where you're not given much wiggle room for your career path. If your name is Chris Stew, you're either going to become a magician or a medium. Last but not least, we have Lily. She's played by Ingrid Sorelli, and she absolutely bodied this role. I know we got to give, or I'm assuming we have to give a lot of credit to the director. There's just so much subtleties to this character's body language that makes her so creepy. Okay, now that you read the back of the case, let's rent this movie and let's press play. Here's how Late Night with the Devil actually plays out. First off, I want to give praise to how this bad boy was shot. It's talk show style, so they're using 3 cameras, and typically with horror movies, they get to work with a lot of angles to build suspense or make scenes more scary. But in this movie, they're only working with the cameras that are in front of the actors that are on stage. We do get some behind-the-scenes clips where a camera's following people, but we'll get into that later. The movie opens with a documentary-style introduction focusing on Jack Delroy. So Jack is a talk show host, and he seems to be killing it early in his career. However, there's one big but. Jack just can't beat the ratings of Johnny Carson's show. And it's wild that if you've seen this movie and you know what happens, to think that this all started because he couldn't beat Johnny Carson's ratings, that's insane. But in this opening, as they're showing kind of like Jack's struggle in his career, or struggle with the fact that he can't beat Johnny Carson's ratings, we get a tug at the heartstrings as they introduce Jack's wife. She seems to be like his emotional anchor, and they seem to be deeply in love. I did air quotes for the people listening. I gotta come up with a sound effect for my air quotes so you guys know when I'm being a little snarky, smug little boy. You know, they show him happy with his wife, and then they introduce the Grove, which we could assume is based on the Bohemian Grove. Rich guys chanting, wearing robes, doing weird stuff. I think they like cut their hands. And this opening is teasing that there's a lot more to Jack than what the public realizes. Yeah, and then we also see that his wife sadly ends up passing with cancer. And between the declining ratings, his wife's death, and the shady affiliations that they mention, they're setting up Jack to look like a little desperate, stinky ass turd. Desperation and live TV, just when you mix them together, it just makes for like a big shit sandwich. It's kind of like when those 2 brothers, the Island Boys, started kissing each other on camera because their videos stopped going viral. Kind of just like a modern day comparison type of thing. Anyway, I do want to point out something that people might have missed. And this, at the end of this opening scene, you do get a glimpse of a ghost of his wife, I believe. There's a couple parts in the movie where you see the wife's ghost, and it's kind of hidden. They don't really bring too much attention to it. And that's one of them. Go back and watch the opening part of this movie. Anyway, the movie brings us to Halloween night 1977. It's the comeback episode, so Jack's pulling out all the stops. The whole idea is going for like a spooky special, so he like lines up the perfect cast to cause chaos. So he has a skeptic, Carmichael Haig, who's clearly just there to like roll his eyes in British. He has June, who calls herself a parapsychologist, and she brings a possessed girl with her like it's fucking bring your demon to work day. And then we have Chris Stew, the medium, he's just dressed like a phony. I'm not sure if that's what they wanted, but he looks like business casual Gold Dust from WWF. The movie lets you in on the approach early. I feel like most of the broadcast is shown in like that retro color grade, but when they cut to a commercial, they change it to a black and white. It's just to give you the idea of this is one of the clips that people haven't seen yet, to match the whole documentary style feel of the movie. It's subtle, but it's really effective, because when they do go behind the scenes, you learn more about how Jack doesn't give a crap about anything but ratings. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where the movie begins to make you feel like, hold on, let me go grab my sage and my lighter. Jack Delroy introduces Chris Stew, the medium. He's brought out to give like a reading to the audience, and hopefully make himself look good. I don't know what it is about him, like about his attire and just his look that comes off as phony. Maybe too much theatrical flair with the button up and all that. He looks like the type of guy who doesn't even own socks. As a viewer, at the beginning of his reading at least, you're left kind of questioning like, wait, is this guy a phony? Why did they bring him on the set at all? Because his whole first attempt is basically completely wrong. He's like calling out a name, is it Peterson? And then someone says Peterman, and he's like, yes, Peterman. Oh, yes, she is not with you anymore. She moved on. She's no longer with us. And it turns out it was just a divorce. So he's getting like everything wrong on his first attempt. We kind of get a little bit of a shift, because the second family he goes up to, they actually seem to be believing it. Like, they're getting emotional with the things that he's bringing up about a lost relative, even to where he brings up, like, the name of a stuffed animal the boy used to carry. So now we're kind of, like, leaning forward in our seat, like, wait a minute. Is this guy, like, legit? Does he know what he's talking about? To make it even better, at the end of the reading, when just as Jack is about to close the segment and go to a commercial, like something crazy is coming in. He starts grabbing his head like he's getting a headache. He seems to be in pain. He's screaming. His eyes roll back in his head. I think he even loses his accent. I don't know. Does he lose his accent? If you rewatch this, let me know if you feel the same. And he's calling out that there's a mini coming through. Does anybody know a mini? He even says, like, please accept. And now we get our second major cause of suspicion for Jack, because he doesn't say anything, and Minnie is coming through for him. If you didn't notice, which I only noticed on my third time watching, in the opening sequence, when they're showing Jack and his wife, he calls her Minnie. Now, he like whispers it, he kind of just lips it, he says, I love you, Minnie, and the camera's up close on him. So I'm not sure if we're supposed to, on the first watch, catch that and know that this was a reading for Jack. But I just thought that was interesting. Now we get Jack just being quiet, not fessing up at all. He's even trying to kind of like change the subject. Like, maybe it's not a Minnie, maybe it's a Winnie, or I forget what he says, but something along those lines. The lights like flicker. He cuts to a commercial because of how crazy it's getting. And at this point, now we're like, oh shit. So this guy is gifted with something, because something just happened that was legitimate. Now, I'm not sure if it was like guilt that made him stay quiet, or fear, like maybe if he would have accepted it, like a bunch of his secrets would have started coming out, canceled from beyond the grave. Either way, he just stays quiet, and nobody in the audience knows who it's for. Now hang on, because this is where the movie like flips the table, throws up the middle fingers, presses the e-brake, and starts letting the devil drive. So now we're introducing Carmichael Haig onto the stage, who's the resident skeptic of the show. And Haig's coming out all fresh, ready to argue. Chris Stew looks like shit. He looks so, like, weak. I think he has a nosebleed. He looks all disheveled. He doesn't look like he could carry on with the show. And Carmichael Haig does not give a crap. He's like roasting Chris Stew's whole career. Like, he has no emotional intelligence. Christu's like kind of trying to defend himself, but he can't. We get a little bit more insight into Carmichael Haig, though. We learn that he's so convinced that nothing paranormal exists that he walks around with 500,000 monies. Yeah, 500,000 monies. He's a 4-year-old and he keeps 500,000. No, but Jack brings up that Haig carries a $500,000 check for anybody who could prove that there's life beyond this. And, he holds up the check, shows it to the camera, and Jack says, I have a feeling we're going to be seeing that check again by the end of the show. Huh? That's a hint towards his death. If you notice that, then you're cool like me, because I noticed that, and that means I'm smart. Anyway, Christu ends up breaking down to the point where he starts projectile vomiting black liquid across the stage. And I gotta give credit to Haig, because that didn't bother him at all. The throw up even hits him. It lands on him, and he just pulls out a hanky and he's like, fake. I've seen this in circuses back in the 1920s. Christu ends up being escorted out of the show, taken in an ambulance, and they move on to the next segment. We get introduced to Lily, and she comes out on stage prancing, all happy. I think she even bows. And the conversation starts off pretty normal, with Jack asking her normal interview questions. But we learn that this young girl has been through a lot. So she was rescued from a satanic cult that made a pact with Abraxas. And she was the lone survivor of a mass suicide. So pretty scary stuff. But what's creepy is, as Lily's answering, she's looking directly down the camera. Jack kind of corrects it. He's like, you don't have to look at the camera. You can talk to me. And I think that the adults on stage kind of take everything she went through for the reason why she acts and speaks a little more mature than people that are typically in her age range. But I look at it as this isn't mature. This is creepy. The way that she talks isn't smart for her age. It's just creepy. So for example, she looks directly at Jack and says, you're the guy whose wife died of cancer. And then kind of gives him advice. And she closes it with, don't worry, I think you're going to be very famous soon. And Jack's just like, wow, thank you so much. Wow. He's happy. Dude, you didn't feel threatened by that? Meanwhile, while they're giving this backstory about June and Lily, Carmichael Haig is being a skeptic and kind of trying to debunk everything they say. But during their back and forth, I thought he brought up something very interesting that I didn't catch on my first watch. He says that Abraxas craves an audience, which explains why Lily acts so happy when the cameras are on her, and she kind of acts, she looks like she becomes dull when the cameras aren't rolling. Especially during the end of the show when they're saying it's getting close to the end, she lets out an audible sigh, aww. It's because Abraxas is enjoying the audience and the cameras. Yeah, it's about ratings, isn't it, for Jack? So he blindsides June, and while on camera, he asks Lily if it's possible that she could bring the demon forward tonight for everybody to see. She calls the demon Mr. Wriggles. I guess we know the demon as Abraxas, so whatever you want to refer to it as. When they cut to a commercial, June is pissed at Jack, saying, no, this isn't the environment to bring a demon forward. You have bright lights. You have a whole bunch of people watching here. It's not going to end well. And Jack basically just says, come on, please. And she just accepts. So now when they come back on screen, they have June and Lily sitting across from each other. They got Lily all nice and tied up. And June begins to start her session bringing the demon forward. So now we see Lily's face start changing a little bit. Her voice changes. Abraxas is just ghost riding the whip. And in this circumstance, the whip is Lily. Yeah, but we do get a lot of scary shit in this. We get a jump scare, which I was not happy for. She starts revealing things that only Jack and June will know. To June, she says, You remember what happened to his last whore? So this is a full-fledged demon, classic demon, saying mean stuff about women. At its worst, I think like her chair is levitating and June is demanding that the demon goes back into Lily's body, and she thinks that she wins, because it works. But it's clear to us watching this that this is what the demon wants. He wants you to think you have control of it. So he's like, all right, I'll let you guys continue with the show a little bit more. After seeing all this, we're like, there's no way he could debunk this. But nope, he does. He says, wasn't real. Yeah, June clearly hypnotized all of us. And being a professional hypnotist, I could prove it. I could hypnotize you guys all and make you see something similar to what you just saw. So he asks for Gus to be a volunteer. Gus is the co-host of the show, who I forgot to introduce. But Gus was kind of fearful the whole show. As soon as shit started getting weird, he was like, we should end it. Let's not continue. So yeah, this is our volunteer for Haig to prove that he could hypnotize everybody. And as Gus is walking over to the chair, he says, my wife likes the way my head sits on my shoulders, which is another death foreshadow hint thing. Yeah, I'm pretty much just the most astute person in my family, because you know how he dies, right? Yeah, don't want to brag, but I'm cool. Gus sits down on the chair. Carmichael Haig is sitting across from him, and Carmichael pulls out a spiral clock watch, and he's spinning it, and the camera is zoomed in on it, and he's telling everybody to look into the spiral. And I'm not gonna lie, watching this movie, I did not look into the spiral. I kind of made my eyes blurry and looked up a little bit so that I wouldn't get hypnotized for some reason. I was just feeling like, just in case. I don't want to die. It ends up working. He hypnotizes a majority of the people, so all these people are terrified watching Gus get hypnotized because they're seeing worms come out of his neck, him rip open his stomach, and worms pour out. And Haig even hesitates to end the hypnosis just to really build that fear in people. And then when he snaps them out of it, they realize none of it even happened. So that's where Haig gets to say, look, see, this is exactly what you did. You hypnotized everybody, and that's why we all saw what looked like a demon. And June's argument was, you didn't see me hypnotize anybody, though. I didn't have no spiral clock thingy and tell people to look into it. And Lily is the smartest one on stage because she's like, wait a minute. Isn't this recorded? Can't we just watch both of them back and see what actually happened? So we see that Gus never really had worms come out of his stomach, obviously. But when they show the footage of Lily, we see that something weird was actually happening. Everything still looks the same, and we get an image of Jack's wife standing behind him, which was so creepy, and Haig is still denying it. He's just like, you had somebody doctor this footage while we were sitting here, and now they're playing some CGI version. I think that Lily's kind of getting the idea that the show is about to end, and the demon doesn't want the show to end. So this is when people start dying and flying. Lily stands up, and her head splits open to reveal the demon under her, which this is a part where a lot of people complain. They didn't like the CGI, or they didn't like the practical effects, or they just didn't like the way it was portrayed. Hey guys, so I had a lot of technical difficulties with this first episode, so the camera's about to go out. It's going to be black for the rest of the episode. I'm just adding in pictures. Just wanted to let you guys know. And if you happen to leave before I tell you guys at the end, there is an email list where you can see what movie I'm watching next so that you could watch it with me before the next episode drops. That's in the link below. So, yeah, sorry for the technical difficulties. I'll try not to let that happen again. It's kind of like, it looks like an electric-based entity that comes out of her. Gus tries to save the day by saying the power of Christ compels you, and he gets his neck twisted completely around and collapses. June also gets got because she's trying to put the demon back into Lily's body by saying what she said earlier, and yeah, they used the necklace to end her shit. Now Haig finally realizes oh crap, all of this is real. So he's like praying at first. Then when the demon looks at him, he pulls out that check. The check that earlier Jack Delroy said, I think we'll be seeing that again by the end of the night. He tries to give it to the demon, thinking that it cares about that. And the demon says abracadabra and burns him alive. Jack, on the other hand, he kind of gets thrown, but he lives. He gets up and he's like exiting the stage, kind of looking like he's going to escape. But he gets thrown into some alternate reality, kind of like he's stuck in a loop on previous episodes of his show. So he's living in one moment for a little bit and then going to another one, and he's confused. He doesn't know what's going on. And then we get deeper glimpses of Jack's involvement with the Grove, specifically him drinking from a glass in front of the cult leader, Abraxas, and basically pledging his allegiance for fame and fortune. So we kind of get confirmation of what we've been thinking throughout the whole movie. Then we see some doors open to Minnie, his wife, sick on a hospital bed. Her final plea is for Jack to end her suffering. Like, for all this you did, like, this is the least you can do. Please kill me. And Jack has a knife and believes he's stabbing his wife. But when the hallucination ends, he's actually stabbing Lily on stage, on camera. And you just feel his fear in this moment. As the camera, like, zooms out, you see an empty studio with dead people on the floor. Lily stabbed, a knife in his hand. He drops it. And the last thing we see is Jack trying to wake himself up by saying what Haig said earlier when he ended the hypnosis. He's like, Dreamer, here, awake. And he's repeating that, hoping that he's hypnotized and that none of this is real. But no, it's real, bud. How you like your fame now? You like your ratings now? You like that? You like what you got? You happy that you did your little Halloween special? Okay, let's finish with a few of the show's segments. And then I'll give you guys my rating. Let's start with the recast corner, where I try my best to recast the movie. And I'm not saying that this movie was casted wrong. Everybody was perfect. But this is just a fun game to imagine a movie with different actors who I think would have done well. Like I said, everyone brought their A game, but let's start with Carmichael Haig. If we were to recast the Skeptic, I'm thinking of like somebody who's like semi-annoying and sarcastic and like kind of has an annoying face. I think that a good replacement for Carmichael Haig would be Rainn Wilson, the actor from The Office, who it might be a bad choice because people probably just think comedy when they see him, but I think that he can do well in this role. Now, let's do Jack Delroy, the host of the show, which I loved his character, 10 out of 10. But if I'm recasting him, I think that I was thinking that I'll go with Jeff Goldblum. Like, if you picture Jeff Goldblum, he seems like a talk show host, right? I think that that'll be a good recast for this movie. Now let's go to my next segment, Flashback Rental. This is where I recommend a movie to you based on this movie. So if you like this, you might like these. The first one that I did want to highlight is Ghostwatch. It's from 1992. This is like the OG fake broadcast horror movie. If Late Night with the Devil had family, this would be like its British cousin. Another one I do want to mention that's a little bit better than that one is The Taking of Deborah Logan, which is a found footage horror movie that is creepy, very scary. So those are two movies that I want to recommend. My rating for this movie, on this show we're going to do 1 through 5 rating. 1 being completely lackluster, not a good film. 5 means that it makes the staff pick shelf, which means it's a movie that I would recommend to anybody. Late Night with the Devil, for me, is going to get a 4.5. We could say it still makes the staff pick shelf. It's not a perfect movie. 4.5 is my final grade for it. By the way, if you guys want to see what movie I'm watching for the next episode, and so that you guys can watch with me before an episode drops, you could subscribe to my Substack. It's completely free. It's just the email list where I will email you what movie I'm going to be watching for the next episode. Click the link below and sign up for that so that we could, we'll be on the same cycle. We'll be watching movies together. Well, that's it for my shift. I'm clocking out. Until next time, be kind, subscribe.